This sounds more like a Golf than a current Golf. Hello and welcome back to the Volks Wizard channel. Now in 2025 we celebrate 50 years of the Volkswagen Polo, and I'm determined this year to make up for my relative neglect of such a popular Volkswagen by making some new and varied Polo content, such as road trips and reviews of some of the more significant derivatives from the Polo's past. Hopefully including the Mark II bread van, which was my first car back in 1994. Today though, we're going to take stock of what the Polo range offers in 2025 with a full review of the latest addition to that range, the new Black Edition, which in true Black Edition style seems to offer unusually good value for money. Well, to find out if that is really the case, we're going to start off by looking at the Polo range as a whole and where the Black Edition sits in that. But before we get started, let me just remind you guys how you can support the channel. As ever, the simplest way is to subscribe. Big thanks to current subscribers, old and new. Without you guys, this channel would not exist. But if you're one of the unsubscribed and you like what you see on this channel, then please do subscribe. Thanks. For the UK market, all Polos, apart from the GTI, get derivatives of the 1 litre 3-cylinder petrol turbo engine, which is an engine I know very well thanks to its use in the Up GTI, but only the R-Line and the Black Editions get the Up GTI's full-fat 115 horsepower version. The 95 horsepower is the mainstay of the range, and that's available with manual or automatic gearboxes. The 115 can only be had with DSG. If you want the cheapest Polo in the range, that is the £21,210 life specification with 80 horsepower and a manual gearbox, and that does 0 to 62 miles an hour in 15.6 seconds. So that is, yeah, pretty slow. And to top it all off, it's actually 5% less economical than the 95 horsepower manual. They probably should call it the life sentence, that one. So do the right thing, spend a bit more and go for the 95. There are also match style R-Line and Black Edition trim levels, as well as, of course, the range-topping GTI, which has 92 horsepower more than the next model down, the Black Edition. That's the car we're reviewing today. And the GTI is just over £30,000, which means it's only 10% more expensive. I think I'd better get the GTI in for review soon, as I haven't really spent any quality time with one. But now let's have a deep dive into this Black Edition. Okay, let's start off then by talking about the price and spec of this particular test car. It is a Polo Black Edition 1 litre TSI 115 5-door DSG, and it was registered in January 2025. As you will see, it's 98% an R-Line model, just with a few bits here and there. The base price, which does come with a lot of standard kit, I'll try and cover as we go through the video, is £27,710, but this car as tested is £29,305, and that's because it has the space and weight saving spare wheel, including toolkit, for £255, a rear view camera for £370, and the pretty reef blue metallic paintwork, which is a hefty £970, and it comes with a standard black roof, being a Black Edition. Now, white with a black roof is the standard colour on Black Editions, which does seem to make the metallic seem rather expensive at £970. It looks like you're paying for the black roof again, even though it's part of the Black Edition spec. So this could be maybe a configurator error. If it's a marketing strategy, it's not a very good one, because it's just encouraging buyers to go for the free colour of white, and I bet Volkswagen make a good profit on the metallics, even at the £750 which they charge for them on other Polos in the range, like the R-Line. And the R-Line has twice as many colours to choose from. The Black Edition is limited to just 4, reef blue, smoky grey, which are both metallics, and King's Red, which is even more expensive at £1,160. Now at £27,710 with no options, the Black Edition is just £500 more than the equivalent R-Line. But for your £500 extra, you actually get £2,175 more kit, which does beg the question, who's going to buy an R-Line, particularly the equivalent 115 horsepower DSG version, there might still be some demand then for the cheaper style line, which is a good few grand cheaper, which is a 95 horsepower manual, but I think it's a false economy. So if you're looking at R lines, just pay a little bit extra. I'm sure per month it won't be an awful lot. It'll probably hold its value better as well, and go for the Black Edition. So what does your extra 500 quid actually get you? Well, the configurator, as ever, is misleading. I've worked it out as the following items. So you get the black roof, which is part of the Black Edition styling pack with black mirrors. That's £240 extra on the R line. You get 17-inch wheels, and that would cost £360 on an R line, so you're already £100 better off. You get heated front seats, which are £345 as well. But the biggie is the Matrix LED headlights, which give you automatic main beam, dynamic cornering lights, and other things as well. They're an extra £1,230 on the R line. So as I said, it is a bit of a no-brainer, and they look good, but they also work really well at night, and they make night driving so much easier and so much safer. So yeah, it seems like particularly good value, but I think there's a better value Polo in the range that we can talk about at the end of the video. Okay, now let's have a look around the outside of the Polo Black Edition. Now, I think it's generally accepted that this is a Mark 6 Polo, and it's a facelift version. I say generally accepted because, unlike the Golf, things got a bit confused with the Polo around the sort of Mark 3, 4, 5 era. This generation came out in 2018, and I think it was a big step up from the previous 6R generation, which looked a bit utilitarian. This now looks like a much more attractive car, particularly as the facelift. This car, being a Black Edition, has got the standard LED matrix headlights. It's got the light bar as well, though it doesn't illuminate the Volkswagen badge, which has probably got the radar behind it, just like it would have on the Mark 7.5 and Mark 8 Golfs. What's quite interesting is how open the upper grille section is. You can see probably the aircon rad there with another one behind it really clearly in this light. And then down here, that's quite exposed as well. There's already leaves in there, which might lead to its early demise if not cleared out. There's some little lights in there, which are probably the dynamic cornering lights. And this car's got front parking sensors as standard as well. It's a nicely profiled bonnet, although I'm not so sure about this. It reminds me of the grille spoilers, eyebrows that you used to get on Mark II Golfs. Down the side then, well, it's got this very interesting sort of double swage line here, and we've still got the dagger badges, though they must be on borrowed time for the new model that's due later in the year, because I can imagine they're going to put the badges on the side like they have done with pretty much every other model that's been released over the last sort of year or two. Let's talk about the wheels then. They come with 215 45/17 tyres. According to the configurator, they're either Pirelli or Vulcan or Continental, like we've got on this car, or Nexen. Now, I've always discounted them as a budget brand, but clearly they're supplying to Volkswagen, so they can't be that bad. And they've also taken over the Michelin wall at Caffeine and Machine, so clearly they're on a bit of a march. The style of wheel on this car is Bergamo, not my favourite wheel. I much prefer the York wheel, which the configurator says is standard for the Black Edition. But the Volkswagen website is all over the place because it's got a special page for the Black Edition Polo, and it shows it on these wheels, but in completely black. So I'm confused. Speaking of black mirror casings, part of the Black Edition spec, and a contrast roof, which as usual doesn't go right to the edge. We have got a sort of sill extension in matte black plastic, which is interesting because the front of the car is all gloss black, although there is matte black down here as well. It's probably for the best because it's quite easy to damage those bits. Brakes are really nothing to write home about, but they do work well, as I'll demonstrate when we go four-wheel drive. They should be nice and cheap to replace. Tinted glass from the B-pillar back. Spoiler-wise, we've got, I guess, this gloss black bit on this bit, so I presume this is R-Line specific, and we've still got a roof aerial, which seems to be going out of fashion these days. Now from here, it looks very much like the pre-facelift car, but if you come around to the other side, you'll see how it differs. So what they did with the facelift was introduce rear lights into the tailgate to make it look a lot more Golf-like. I don't think you mistake it from the front, but from the back, you can mistake it for a Mark 8 Golf, apart from the fact it says Polo in big letters just there. And by doing that, they made the car look lower and wider, which I think helps with a car like this because it is actually quite tall and relatively narrow, although it's actually the same width as a Mark IV Golf. Down here, unfortunately, we've got some very sorry chrome fake exhaust tips, which is a real shame because it does have exhaust. I'm sure it must have. It's got an engine. Yeah, look, there's an exhaust just there. What we're down here, you can take a look at that torsion beam rear suspension. So the reason I've never been big on Polos is because they didn't make it to the multi-link suspension that the Mark V Golf introduced. So they basically have the same underpinnings as a Mark 1, Mark 2, Mark 3 and Mark IV Golf. But I'm sure they've evolved it over the years. And yeah, I'll demonstrate how it drives when we go for a drive. Now, let's have a look inside this Polo Black Edition. But not before I show you the key, which you may recognise. Yep, it's the Mark VII Golf key. What's interesting is that even though the car's covered in R logos, they haven't put the chrome bit on the bottom of the key with the R logo. So if this was my car, I'd go and get one off eBay and fit it. You could just unscrew the black plastic bit that the ring goes through. No keyless entry, no keyless start on this car. I think they're available as an option. Electric folding mirrors are standard. And what I have noticed, like a lot of things on this car, it reminds me of Mark VII 7.5 Golf in so many ways. Firstly, the feel and the sound of the door. This sounds more like a Golf than a current Golf. How weird is that? Right, let's start then with the door card, because this is not very Golf, I suppose. Very disappointed with this hard plastic here, and I mean pretty much the whole door card is hard plastic. This is padded, but not very much, and this fabric is a little bit boring for an R-line. It's all right for a Life or even a Match, but R-line should have Alcantara there to match the seats. At least we've got chrome tips on the switches. This is a bit cheap and probably will scratch. This looks great and feels lovely, but I think it's just plastic. I think though these aluminium sill protectors make up for a lot of the bad bits on the door card though, because these are standard and they look great. If I had a Golf R, which I don't think comes with anything on the sills, I'd get some of those and stick them on. But then we have the carpets. So this again is that disappointing sort of sprayed on texture we've got with Golf 8, but it's okay in a Polo. Likewise with the plastic here, it's probably the same, maybe even better than Golf 8, but it's probably not as good as Golf 7 7.5, but I think it's okay in a Polo. The pedals are just like the ones in Golfs, really nice stainless affairs on this R-line. The floor mats are better quality carpet than the actual carpet, and they've got contrast stitch which brighten them up a little bit. This plastic is okay. Got the bonnet release on the correct side. Traditional headlight switch, not that sort of automated one you get on the newer cars. Weirdly though, this is just black, which looks wrong with all the other chrome bits everywhere on this car. I know it's a Black Edition, but come on, there's no other black bits really. Now let's have a look at the seat. So we have lumbar adjustment, which interestingly pulls out the bolsters as well as the bottom of the backrest. It's nice to have that. Everything else is manual adjustment, height and front and back, and obviously the adjustment of the backrest itself. We have this fabric which started life in the TCR as like an orangey red colour, then it went into the R-line Mark 8 and R, which was blue. This is the R-line colour for every R-line in the range, I think, and it's alright. We've got microfiber there, fabric here, but contrast stitch. What's weird, seeing this fabric with traditional seats, we don't have the integrated headrest. Okay, now let's have a closer look at the dashboard. I'll put my seat back a bit, but I will adjust it when I get in the back. First thing you notice, the lovely button steering wheel. Now what's interesting is that the facelift came out in 21 of the Polo, and it started life with a haptic wheel. They've had to change that mid-run, which is very unusual to this because consumer demand has forced their hand. So it's really nice to get this. It looks expensive, feels good, it's great. Paddles there, R badge there, and everything is where you'd expect it to be. It's not been messed around with like it has on some other newer Volkswagens. This is very much a throwback car, and I think if you don't like all the changes in Golf 8 and you really like the 7.5, I don't think you'd be disappointed with this car. We've still got climate control down there, but it is a newer touch panel in this facelift model, but it's better than having it integrated into the infotainment. What I can't work out is that this dash is pretty much identical in layout to that in Golf 8, so infotainment and the air vents there, but the Golf 8 doesn't have this, but it doesn't seem to gain an awful lot. We've got a similar size cubby down there. What you did get on the Golf 8 was a bit of a bigger trim panel, and then you also had the infamous unlit infotainment sliders. They probably should have done without those and stuck the climate control down there like they have on the Polo, because this works really, really well. Showing its age is this traditional automatic shifter, which does have Tiptronic mode if you want to shift with it on the right. Again, that's kind of out of fashion these days. Oh, let's not forget, we have a normal parking brake, nice chrome tip and nice bit of leather on there. That's good. Very sort of basic cup holders, 12 volt there, not a cigarette lighter. Little armrest, doesn't obstruct the handbrake, which makes a nice change. Can you set it for different angles? Doesn't seem to ratchet like they used to. What's disappointing with this nearly top of the range car is that there are a hell of a lot of blanks in the centre console. So we've got parking sensors on and off there, and start stop system on and off. If you want to turn off the traction control, so basically if you're a car journalist, then you might be a little bit miffed. You have to do that through the infotainment system. But I think if you're buying this car for your offspring, then you'd probably be quite glad that it's not easy to do that. Let's talk about infotainment system then. So as you might have noticed, this, like the key, is a bit of a throwback. It's very similar, at least superficially, to the one in the 7.5, which nobody had a problem with. I actually prefer this one with the knobs to the upgrade, the Discovery Pro system in 7.5. I find it very frustrating that you can't just grab the knob and turn it on or off or adjust the volume. I think this is okay. It's got dual climate. You can slide up and down, or you can press whatever you prefer. It's not as tactile as one with, you know, knobs like in the Golf 7.5, but it works. Yeah, it's a bit loud. There we go, it's quiet now. Down here then, we've got USB-Cs ×2 and the wireless charging pad there, and it does work. I've used it. Wireless CarPlay is seamless. Yeah, wireless CarPlay works really well, and the charging works really well, so that is definitely progress. Now, standard since the Polo facelift is that every model gets the Active Info Display digital instrument cluster, and it's quite a nice one on this car. It's pretty configurable, and you can have traditional gauges if you want, and change all the middle bits to suit whatever you like. The dash moulding is really nice. It's soft touch, unlike on early T-Roc. This is plastic, but it's got a nice texture to it, and it doesn't look too different to the fabric headliner, which is black, for the sporty look. Glove box, it's damped, but it's pretty plain, and it does remind me how much it looks like the Golf 8 and how cheap that looks compared to the one in the 7.5. Speaking of 7.5, check this out, guys. Sunglasses holder. So if you've missed that in a Golf, it's still here. Well, for the moment anyway. All this is actually taken straight out of Golf. So yeah, it's uncanny how many things in here remind me of Golf 7.5, and that's the generation we all like a lot. Right, I'll just adjust my seat to my driving position, and I'll see you in the back and we can check out the legroom. Actually, before we get in the back, let's just check out the rear door card, because it's a pet hate of mine that Volkswagen like to downgrade the rear door cards and think you won't notice. Well, I've noticed, Volkswagen. This is hard, scratchy plastic. Imagine having your elbow on there for a long journey. Gone is the padding and the fabric from the front door cards, which itself doesn't look good enough for this car, so that's very disappointing. But the good news is, space in here is actually very good. I probably shouldn't have worn black jeans in this black interior, but yeah, there's a fair bit of knee room. I'm 6 foot and about 32, 33 inch leg, so pretty average. It's hollow in the back of the seat as well, which gives you that little bit more knee room. That's a nice touch. And we don't have the bulky headrests of the Mark 8 Golf, so actually it feels a bit less claustrophobic. As a result, there's quite a bit of space here between the seats. Got USB-C down here, but no climate controls. Headroom is pretty decent, and yeah, the headrest going in my back, but I can raise that. But no, it's actually, yeah, pretty acceptable. And that's because it's got actually a slightly longer wheelbase than in the Mark IV Golf. Golf 4 wasn't good for a Golf. This feels bigger, and this is only a Polo, so I guess you could call that progress. Now let's have a look in the boot. And to get in the boot, you use the Volkswagen logo, which I think is a wonderful bit of design and engineering. That under that cover, to keep it clean, is the rear view camera, which is an option on this Black Edition, one of the few options this car has got. So everything you see is pretty much standard. Now, as well as my pet hate of downgraded rear door cards, I also hate the fact that we get the rear seat split 60-40 this way round, which is the same as for left-hand drive cars. Now, somebody's clearly realised it's much better having the wider folding down behind the passenger, because you can get in really bulky things, push that passenger seat all the way forward and not affect the driving. A bit like wipers and early Mark II Golfs. They haven't converted this for us in the UK. You can tell I've moved house 3 times in about 3 years, and I've folded down a lot of seats. Boot capacity, though, is actually really good. Golf 8 is 380, this is 350, so a bit more than Golf 4, which just shows you how good the packaging is on this car. We seem to have more rear legroom, and we have a bigger boot as well. And what actually looks very much like Golf 4 is that we have a full-size spare wheel, and spare wheel well. Now, this is an option, admittedly, it's a couple of £100, but it's definitely worth going for. It's actually described as a space and weight saving spare wheel, which is probably not exactly true, because it's steel and alloys would be lighter, but hey, isn't that nice to see? It's made by Kumho, it's a 15-inch one, but yeah, it's better than tyre foam or a recovery truck. And the load lip is actually quite low, and I actually sit a lot on the back of cars like this, and yeah, it's really nice. So yeah, a very good boot. Right, let's have a look under the bonnet, and it's quite a good sign that we have the release on the correct side. That's not been the case on some Polos, I think. I'm pretty sure though, you know, I'm going to have a manual bonnet stay. Yeah, so there we go. So oh, that just reminds me of the Up GTI, although you didn't have that massive gap there between it and the chassis leg. So you can see the 4-cylinder for the GTI. It's actually the only 4-cylinder that goes in this body shell. Has got plenty of room to fit in. So yeah, not exactly that heavily painted down there. I think that's primer, not base coat. But again, at this price point, this kind of car, it's okay. Okay, so now it's time to find out if that Up GTI engine under the Polo Black Edition bonnet can make it anything like as much fun to drive as everybody's favourite Pocket Rocket. Well, welcome to the Polo Black Edition. So yeah, Up GTI engine under the bonnet, but unfortunately it doesn't have Up GTI levels of performance, even though it shares the same horsepower and torque figures, 115 horsepower, 200 Newton meters of torque, which actually is quite a nice torque figure, and it does define this car. It's definitely not a rever, but it is quite punchy at lower revs, and that's what I think you need. 0 to 62, 9.8 seconds, which is a whole second slower than the Up GTI. But that's because it's quite a bit heavier. So this is about 1,250 kilograms, so 25% heavier than the Up GTI. And if you think that you're getting about 75% of the performance of the Up GTI from this car, then you'd be there or thereabouts. Correct. It's just about adequate. I think the gearbox helps a lot with that. So a 7-speed DSG, that's the only box you can get with this 115 horsepower 1 litre engine in the Polo. If you want manual, you have to drop back to an R-line and go for 95 horsepower. It's a dry clutch DSG, not the wet clutch of the bigger engined cars. And in the olden days, you could tell because they just weren't as smooth. Nowadays, it's really hard to tell. But having said that, when it was delivered, the delivery driver backed it up my driveway and there was a whiff of hot clutch. So they're still not as good, but apart from weird things like that, backing up a steep driveway, yeah, you'd never tell. the difference. We do have paddles for changing gear if you want to get more engaged in the process, and they're really good. The shifts aren't as quick as, say, in a 7-speed Golf GTI, but they're still not bad, and actually the downshifts are really, really good. And importantly, for weird people like me, if you want to switch back to auto mode once you've used the paddles, just hold the right hand paddle towards you, push it where it says off on it, as there's your clue, and that puts it straight back into drive mode, so you can just go back into waft-o-matic. I've driven this car for a few hundred miles, but it didn't take very long to work out this car's definitely geared towards handling and not necessarily ride quality. So on a British B road like this with a good surface, you'll be amazed about how much speed you can carry through the corners. I don't think you'll be far behind other cars. Yes, on the straights they'll leave you behind, but it goes around corners so well. We're on 215 Conti tyres, so they're, you know, quite wide for the size and weight of this car, which help. But even in these sort of greasy conditions, it's surprisingly good, and does bring a smile to your face, just like an Up GTI does. In fact, actually, I'd say the chassis is better than the Up GTI. It probably feels similar in the corners, but it manages the bumps better. Yes, it's stiff, but it doesn't go crashy like the Up GTI. There's actually a repair on this corner on the weighted outside wheel just there, and some cars bang on that, and Up GTI probably bang on that. This doesn't. So yeah, it's stiff, but it's not crashy. I think that's really important. And actually, once you get it on the open road, the suspension does breathe a lot more than it does around town. It's a little bit fidgety around town. And if you're going to drive mainly around town over speed humps and potholes and stuff, then this may not be the car for you. Maybe go for a smaller wheels Polo like an R-Line. See, even minor imperfections sort of thump through the chassis there, but they do not crash. There is also a sport mode on the gearbox, by the way, but this is really weird. It doesn't actually seem to do anything. Normally they drop gears and pick the revs up. That didn't do anything at all. The only good thing about it is that it does say S5 on the instrument cluster, which tells you which gear you're in automatic mode, which you don't get in drive. And you can shift with down here if you want, like feel like a touring car driver in your 1 litre Polo. Brakes, as long as you don't brake over bumps, they're really good. There's a lot of retardation at the top of the pedal, but actually once you push harder, you can modulate. It does brake harder the more you press the pedal once you get past that initial bit. I would say the only disappointment, apart from the urban ride quality, which you're going to feel a bit more in this village now, is the steering feel does feel initially very glassy, with no texture, no feedback. It's not too bad when you chuck it into a corner and you load up the suspension. It does start to talk a bit then, but you don't do that very often, and I still don't trust loading it up much in the wet, because I just don't feel it's going to communicate to me when it's about to lose grip. And the Up GTI was actually very similar to that, but we don't seem to be on crazy eco tyres on this car, at least. Let's just talk about the noise this car makes. There doesn't seem to be any exhaust noise. There isn't any fake noise, but somewhat unexpectedly for a car like this, there is quite a lot of character, and that comes from the Poundland Porsche, as Johnny Smith described it, 3-cylinder engine under the bonnet. Now, driving along normally in drive mode, the revs don't get very high, and it just seemed to be really quiet and refined, unusually so for a car like this. I guess that's why the Polo is so good. It's probably quieter than a Golf, but if you want to work it, because, you know, I suppose it's got some sporty pretensions, use the paddles, get the revs high, and listen to it. Now, tazzing around on B roads is all well and good, but because Polos will be by and large used for commuting, I thought I'd demonstrate its prowess on the motorway, where it's actually surprisingly good for a small car. It's not as quiet at 70 as it is at 50 to 60, but it's still pretty well hushed enough for you to have an easy conversation with a passenger or a GoPro. And that's in no small part due to the high 7th gear with this DSG gearbox. So we're doing 70 now, and the rev counter is showing 2,500 RPM, which is pretty low for a small car, and that's mainly due to the fact that the peak torque goes from 2,500 to 3,500 RPM, so you've got 200 Newton meters there at your right foot, which in this car is ample. Gone are the days when small car drivers dread motorway journeys, and that's all thanks to turbocharging. So even this 1 litre Polo has enough urgency to deal with the cut and thrust of UK motorway driving. What helps as well is the standard adaptive cruise control. This is still an expensive option on many Audis, but it's standard on the Polo, and it works really well. It is by default connected to traffic sign recognition, which uses traffic signs and GPS to alter the cruise control speed, and this can have the effect of making you do below the speed limit or above the speed limit depending on how it feels. It's definitely a flawed technology. I would suggest though that you give it a try, because when it works well, it's brilliant, but if it winds you up, you can turn it off and it will stay off permanently. Unlike lane assist and speed limit warning, this is a 2025 car and it comes with those 2 driver aids as standard. Whether you should turn them off is up to you, but personally, if I'd got done for speeding or drifted out of my lane and had a mishap, I'd feel a bit of a plank if I'd turned them off. But whatever, Volkswagen have made it quite easy for you to do that. So all you need to do is press the button on the end of the left-hand stalk. That opens up a menu in the middle of the instrument cluster, and then just use the OK button and the arrows to uncheck the driver aids you don't want. Let's just quickly talk about fuel economy. These modern cars, small engine, automatic gearbox, they are super economical, and they're perfect for short journeys around town when bigger engines don't warm up. I did one of my regular shopping drives, and my Audi S4 with a big engine, diesel engine, just doesn't warm up, and it does 20-something mpg, which is quite painful. This car was in the 40s, so if you're doing lots of short urban drives, it's great, but actually on the road, on open road and longer journeys, it's actually really good as well. Smaller cars weren't like that, but yeah, this is really good. But then it's not that small. It is, as I've said many times before, like a Mark IV Golf. In summary, I didn't expect to like this car, but a combination of the handling and the character from that engine and the feel of utter Mark 7.5 Golf quality in here has endeared it to me quite a lot. But at 27 grand and 0 to 62 of 9.8 seconds, there's probably a better Polo in the range for a driver like me. But this is still a very, very good car. And that other Polo is, of course, the GTI. If the £27,000 Black Edition is good value for money, then surely at just over 30k, the GTI must be an absolute bargain. Okay, you don't get the Black Edition's black roof or heated seats, but it's got 92 more horsepower, which lops a whole 3.3 seconds off the 0 to 62 sprint. Plus, it's got standard DCC adaptive dampers, which are generally worth around about £1,000 when they're optional on other cars, and which will hopefully take the edge off the Black Edition's turbulent ride while retaining all its poise. And the best bit is that today you can finance a Polo GTI with no options for just £387 per month over 4 years and 40,000 miles with zero deposit, aside from the £2,250 deposit contribution that Volkswagen give you, which is the most generous in the Polo range. And that's because you can get a further 2.5 grand off the list price if you buy through Drive the Deal. This is not a sponsored video, I wish it was. But there's still one very good reason to buy this Black Edition, and that is insurance. The GTI is Group 27, while the Black Edition is 17. This may not sound like a big difference, but for a new driver, it could be the difference between below average premiums and above average, and that could make a massive difference. possibly more than £3,000 per year. If that's you though, I'm confident you will not feel shortchanged by the Black Edition, so enjoy its charms for a couple of years and get that no claims bonus under your belt. And once your insurer finally starts to quote you happy, then make the move to that GTI. But I bet when the time comes, you will find it very tricky to ignore the charms of the Polo GTI's big brother, the Golf GTI, which was my third car in 1996. And the rest, as you say, is history. As ever guys, thanks for watching this Volks Wizard video. Keep subscribing, keep commenting, and big thanks for your response to the Volks Wizard reboot in business video that I posted last week. I'm truly humbled by all your comments.